welcome to SuckleBusters Outdoor Kitchen. I'm Dan Arnold, I'm the owner, and today we're gonna tackle the biggest of the big in Texas backyard barbecue, and that's brisket. Watch this video, we're gonna take you through step by step. Check out our website for the recipe, and lastly, if you need help, just reach out to us. Facebook, YouTube, Texas Barbecue Forum, any of those, just ask a question, we'll be happy to help you out. Let's get starting with our shopping list. So first of all, you're gonna need a brisket. We recommend a whole brisket, untrimmed. This brisket I got at Costco. It's a prime, and it's about a 15-pound brisket. Next, we're gonna need our binders and our rubs and seasonings. For binders, today we're gonna be using Worcestershire. You could also use yellow mustard. That's a great binder as well. And then we have 3 seasonings we're gonna put on the brisket. We're gonna put our 1836 beef rub, our SPG all-purpose, and we're also gonna put a small layer of our Sugar Daddy for just a little extra layer of sweetness on this brisket. The next thing you're gonna need is a smoker. So I'm gonna assume that you have a smoker. The key to your smoker is being able to run it at a consistent temperature. You wanna cook your brisket at between 225 and 250 degrees, and you wanna be able to run it consistently at that temperature for a long period of time. Today we're using a pellet cooker, perfect for doing that. Very easy to use, and it gives you great performance in terms of holding a consistent temperature. Also, we're gonna be using pink butcher paper. We wrap our briskets. The last 2 items that you're gonna need is, obviously you need a sharp knife to trim the brisket, and you need some type of instant read or a thermometer that you can insert into the brisket to monitor the temperature. We're ready to begin to prep our brisket. I keep the brisket in the refrigerator until it's time to trim it. It trims a little easier when it's cold. So I just removed this from the refrigerator. I set up my cooker to run at 250 degrees. While the cooker's getting up to temperature, I'm gonna prep my brisket. Our goal is to trim it down to about a 1/4 inch fat and then remove the major portions of fat in between the 2 muscles. On an untrimmed brisket, there's 2 major muscles. There's the flat end of the brisket and there's the point. And these 2 muscles, the point muscle runs in this direction on this brisket, the flat runs this direction. There's a layer of fat in between these 2 muscles, so we're gonna trim some of that out, and we're also gonna trim the bottom of the brisket, the fat side of the brisket. So let's do that. The hard fat on the brisket adds cooking time, and the second thing is it just melts into your smoker. There's really no reason to cook it because you're not gonna eat it, and it just adds additional liquid in your smoker that you don't really need. So if you turn the brisket around on this side, you'll see that there's a layer of fat right in between here. If that's really thick, then we may want to remove some of that from the brisket before we season it. We have our brisket trimmed down to about a 1/4 inch fat across the back side, the fatty side. And then we also have most of the hard fat trimmed from in between the 2 muscles. You can see that the flat lays nice this way, and then the point goes in the opposite direction. And when you put it on your board and lay it out, when it's trimmed properly, the brisket will be a consistent size from end to end. That's gonna help in our cooking process. Once the brisket is fully trimmed, the last thing I like to do is notch it on one corner. What I'm looking for is the angle that the flat grain is running, and I'm gonna notch against that, just a small triangle in the corner. That's gonna give me a slicing reference. When the brisket is completely cooked, this is gonna be black. It's not gonna be as easy to see. This notch tells me I need to slice the brisket in this direction. So the next step is seasoning. First thing we're gonna do is apply our binder. For this, we're gonna use our Worcestershire sauce or W sauce. So we just wanna put a nice thin layer across the entire meat side of the brisket, and then we just wanna rub it into the brisket to apply it evenly. This binder is gonna help our seasoning stick to the brisket, and it's gonna add a little bit of flavor. After you apply the binder, the next step is to apply the seasoning. Today we're gonna use 3 types of seasoning. We're gonna start off with our SPG all-purpose barbecue rub. This is a nice salty, garlicky flavor. It's gonna give us a great base layer, so we're gonna start off with that. Our next layer is 1836 beef rub. This is where we get the Texas flavor for brisket. This has a heavy cracked black pepper flavor, awesome on beef, made for brisket. It's really, really got a good flavor to it. And we're also gonna put a small layer of our Sugar Daddy for just a little extra layer of sweetness on this brisket. Today we're cooking on our Traeger pellet grill. We're gonna cook it at 250 degrees. We're gonna use a combination of oak and hickory pellets, and we're gonna cook it fat side down. Our brisket's been cooking for about 4 hours, so it's time to check the temperature. We want to take it to about 165 degrees before we wrap it. So you want to check it in multiple spots across the brisket to make sure you get a consistent reading. Our brisket's at 170 degrees, so it's time to wrap it. I like to use 2 layers of pink butcher paper. Real simple. You just want to wrap it tight and then get it back to the grill as soon as possible. Our brisket has been back on the cooker for some time now. We're going to check for our final temperature. We're looking for between 200 and 205 degrees. 203 is just perfect. If this slides in like a hot knife through butter, you're good to go. Our brisket is done and we pulled it. Now you want to rest it. You want to rest it for at least an hour, but you can rest it for up to 6-8 hours if you need to. I recommend just leaving it in the tray, covering it with a thick blanket or towel, and just setting it off to the side if you're only going to rest it for about an hour or 2. If you're going to rest it for longer, then put it in a cooler. Our brisket's been resting for about an hour, so now it's time to carve it up and serve it. I'm glad you joined us today for this video. You now have a plan for Texas brisket in your backyard. Use the video as your guide. Refer to our website. We have the recipe written out so you can follow along. And lastly, if you have questions, just ask. Reach out to us on social media. We'd love to help you make the best brisket you can make. The only thing left now to do is to eat some of this wonderful Texas brisket. Oh, that's awesome. I hope you enjoy your brisket as much as I'm enjoying this brisket.